Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sam64, and welcome to the RoboCast. This is the RoboCast Spotlight, in which we look at specific teams and their history with Robot Wars and Robot Combatics in general. We are joined by, I think that you're the first, or the first to participate in Robot Wars in history in terms of who I've actually spoken to. It is Mr. Simon Harrison from King B. Hello.
Hello, hello, thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's kind of weird, because it was such an integral part of my childhood, and now I'm actually getting a chance to speak to you about your machine. It's great. I'm really really excited about this.
Well, it's a little bit creepy, but no, I'm really happy. I do appreciate it. It's nice to be on. It's a new channel, really, in a way for me, and it's quite exciting, to speak to you, really.
Well, thank you very much. My first thing I've got to ask is, how did you go about getting involved in Robot Wars in the beginning? I mean, obviously there was the first series, which obviously you probably saw on TV, and then kind of went from there. How did was that the sole reason as to why you got involved in the show in the first place?
I tell you what, it goes back a long, 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 long way. Um, when I was a child, I used to build stuff, and I don't know, I used to make little things, and some of the little robots and whatever. I think I don't know, when I was about 5 or 6, I took my brother's scale electric apart and took the motors out. And then I think local to me, when I lived in Romford, was a surplus shop called Patrick and McKinney's, and my dad used to take me there. It's like army radio stuff and gear. So I had in my mind, and the sort of things I did was like robotics and electronics. And then I saw Robot Wars, and my life had been a bit dull for work and whatever, and it just really grabbed me. I just saw it and I thought, since a child I've been messing around with this sort of stuff.
And you thought this
And
is right up your street. You thought,
this
yeah,
is right on my street.
yeah,
And what happened actually, Grant, who was on the team from about series 4, I think,
mm,
he was working with me where I was working, and he was like a purchasing manager,
mm.
and I was in engineering. And he actually rushed over and said, "Oh, do you see Robot Wars? It sounds just like the sort of thing you should do." And actually, what he was saying, it was something I should do, so he could come and do it as well. He was
Sneak it
really
on.
keen. Yeah. So and he actually persuaded me in a way, because I was very nervous about doing it. Because even though it was something I really fancied doing, I'm not really a very forward sort of person for just going out and doing things like that. And he
Yeah.
actually he phoned the production right away. I mean, this is probably on the second show for series 1.
Mm.
Um, and we phoned up the production and said, well, I think he told them I had an entry, or we had an entry, before I really got a chance to really
Completely
get.
lying.
That's how it started.
Oh, brilliant! And then obviously, you know, King Buxton, as it was all the way back then. I think the Druids. In fact, I've got monuments about King B. It was that long ago. But how did that design come about? Was it just sort of try and keep it simple and then see and then improve from there, or was it a case of I think this could be a really good idea?
Now, that's a very good question, and I'll tell you something. I thought a lot about this. King B, the first King Buxton, was actually designed to win. Actually,
Mm.
it was actually we looked around at the stuff we had, because we had no budget in those days. We never had a lot of budget,
Mm.
and it's scraped together a small team with some skill.
Mm.
Um, and it was actually designed to win, in that I looked, and also a couple of Grant, he's not saying he's not technical, but he was able to look at the way the show flowed, as it were, and see how a robot could win. And he put some stupid ideas forward. He said, "Oh, we ought to make one that looked like a German helmet, which is like a limpet." So what it'd do, it'd run around and scuttle about, and then when anyone attacked it, it would kind of
Shelter itself away.
shelter itself away, and
That's
you just.
brilliant.
That was an idea, but I already had in my mind, from the things I've been making when I was like 6 or 7 or 10 or whatever, what I wanted to do. And I saw, and also we had another team member, Steve, and he agreed with me that the way to go is basically, there was a lot. Then there was the gauntlet, not to get stuck,
Yeah.
and be quite mobile, be quite powerful. And in my mind, that really clicked, because I knew that in what I was doing then, I was sort of electronics I could do. I thought, right, I can make some good electronics and put some big motors in, and make it fairly robust. And I said later on, I think, to other people, said, what should you do when you design a robot? And you have to look at the parameters, you have to do a proper engineering design, and see, look, what do you need to achieve, and sit down and think, what do you need to achieve? And we had thought that through that robot. We'd had to compromise on some of the, the price of the thing. We only bought a radio and the motors, and scrounged the batteries, all the steel and the metalwork, it became a bit boxy because that's what was lying around.
Yeah.
And I'll go into that maybe later. But the parameters of it were correct, I believe, to win for Series 1, which was obviously weren't in Series 1, but we saw Series 1 and took that as our, marker.
Yeah.
And that maybe Series 2.
And in fairness, you weren't like far away in series. I mean, you did fairly well in series. So I think you were final 8, was it? Final 6?
Yeah,
Something like that?
that's right. So we pushed we ran out of time and money, and also I decided to build all the electronics, did all the things we shouldn't have done, spend too much time on building our own gearboxes and cutting gears, and and that's how it's almost continued. I mean, the reason we don't, it's not, it's just trying to do too much yourself doesn't always pay dividends. But we did all right in those days, and I think where King B later has sort of gone wrong is that early design was absolutely built looking at what needed to be the design to win in those days. And in those days, it was quite simple. You had to get across the gauntlet and
not die.
you know, um, and later on, I was kind of stuck, and maybe I lost my way a bit in that King B just had to be King B after that. And it maybe it should have been should have ripped up the design every year, But in those days, yeah, designed it. Those early ones, we thought we could win with that.
Yeah, obviously, as I said, Series 2 did really well. Series 3, you were kind of scuppered by your great rival and obviously friend Mike. And we've spoken before about your great admiration for Mike and how like you two have kind of you've remained friends after all these years. It's and those two robots, I think it's an iconic rivalry. You look back at obviously you got the Razor Tornadoes and stuff like that. That's one of the ones that I think a lot of fans look to. King B and 101 as a great rivalry that lasted throughout the series, really.
I agree with that. I think that's, if I look at my life so far, I mean, in the top 10% of the things that I think I really, I've really enjoyed, and I've done, it was the right thing to do, and circumstance turned out right. That little rivalry and those little run-ins we had and the fights we had, that's 100%. It wouldn't be better. It wouldn't be better if I'd won against him, on Series 3. It was a moment in time, those times that perfectly encapsulated the two machines that, he had the edge on. He really did have the edge. He's a fantastic guy, a great engineer, and he just engineered that machine better than ours in the end, really. And he thought about it. He's an engineer through and through. And those times, I just look back and think, yeah, that's just such fantastic times, and such a great guy, and Amy as well, and his team, and so much fun. Wished it could have, wish that could come back. I really do. I've begged Mike to come back.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, well, I've actually talked to him a lot about forming a team. But it's just not getting anywhere. We've had such fantastic ideas we could do, but it's just circumstances and commitments.
Yeah, of course.
It just hasn't come off. But the things.
I mean, technically, once upon a time, you did. Obviously, your big success, really, the tag team where you ended up winning the whole thing. Who I have to ask, who kept the trophy, or did you both get one in the end?
I had this idea this is going to be the highlight, and it's going to be downhill from then.
I wasn't going to mention it.
I grabbed the trophy real quick and ran away with it, which actually Mike was a bit upset about that, but he was upset anyway. So no, they actually built a second trophy for Mike, but I have to say, I hope he's not listening. My one's a bit bigger and nicer. So after all of this, I still won out on something. I still feel I got a bigger trophy. So, but there weren't many trophies going around in those days. We were lucky, and I still that was fantastic because we did. I thought it was on a downhill slope to come back, and that really brought back a really happy day. That was winning that.
I was just, that was kind of your big. I mean, obviously we'll get to the later series in a minute. I mean, I classed like the first 3 King B machines, like King Buxton to King B3, as like sort of the glory years, so to speak.
Yeah.
When you were like, you actually genuinely had a chance of winning most fights. Do you look back on those machines with any fondness at all?
Absolutely. I mean, that was, as I said earlier, they were designed. The design were correct for the era. That you have to have luck, and we didn't do a few things right. We made a few mistakes. and our chance went by, but we were close, and we were happy we were close because it came right very often. We were doing well in those days, and yeah, those to me were the best days. I can remember those fights. Later on, I think it all became a bit of a haze. I got caught up in it, and I can't remember really what happened most of the time. But those series 2 and 3 and a little bit 4, yeah, I can. I can remember everything about them, and I remember it being so new and shiny, and it was there was shine on things, and even the catering was nice when you went filming. It was nice to you.
Is it not so good anymore?
The whole thing was really a great experience. It really was something that those coming into Robot Wars now. I mean, I don't knock it, but it was something a little bit because it was new and it hadn't been done before. There was something, and I think everyone will look back, and it's not just because we're all old fogies look back, but there was something really great about those days. And you didn't have to build the best robot. Now you really have to be on top of your game to do well. But in those days, you really could compete and do well with something using your brain and the best ideas and the stuff you had around, and they were great days, really great days.
That actually brings me quite neatly onto the segue. I mean, obviously you're in the 5th Wars as well. I can't remember too much about that. I think who did you fight? Oh, you fought Chronic, didn't you? You beat Chronic, which obviously went on to become Apollo. But there was one moment in Series 7 which you came back in, and where you're about to fight IG-88, and you say our robot was conceived at a slightly more innocent age, and I'm just like, yeah, it wasn't really fair to put it in with that, was it?
No, well, the thing is, I tell you what happened on the IG-88 fight. In the King B is actually tougher. The major part of it is actually tougher than I sometimes. I look at the other machines, go, crumbs, I never stand up against that. And actually, not many large parts have fallen off. I broke an axle and lost a wheel once.
Yes,
but it hasn't flown apart. There's lots of nuts and bolts and screws in there. It's very well welded together. I mean, a lot of polycarb, but it doesn't fly apart. But what lets it down are the small details where I've tried to cram too much in, and that IG-88, the lifter on the front actually has like a proportional feedback, so it doesn't just go up and down and stop. It actually goes to where we want to put it, and there's a little arm which feeds back to a sensor. And when IG-88 boshed us, it actually flicked off this little arm. It is like a little ball joint, like on a remote control car. It was actually a remote control car like ball joint for the steering that went off to this little sensor. But anyway, that pushed off, but it really did. That was surprising because you had to leave it off with a screwdriver to get that off, and it really brought home the fact that a hit like that, didn't have to be worried about the whole structure of your robot. You had to worry about the details, the little things, the things that could just fly off. Every little nut, bolt, screw, wire. You get a big hit from a big spinner like that, and it really brought home the fact that you had to build stuff just in a different mindset. It was an innocent age before then. I was like, oh crumbs, and then coming back to Series 8, it was all like, oh no, I was like crying when I saw
some of the robots.
I can't turn up for this. I can't believe I've done it.
I have to ask, obviously, before we get on to obviously your return in Series 8, I mean, obviously Robot Wars went off the air for a long time. We attempted just to stop entirely. We did and just not have nothing to do with it ever again, or did you do on the live circuit for a bit, or I'm not entirely sure. What was your experience?
Well, what happened is I did a few fights over in Ireland. The Mechatron guys, they're over in Dublin every year, and it's a fantastic little event. They've got like a cage fight, so it's a fight to the death, and you can't get flipped out. And I did a few of those, and it was fantastic. But they were in the early days. They were playing. They weren't running it. It was actually sponsored by BT Ireland, and so they were paying a little bit expensive to get over there. So I did a couple of those, but it just got too expensive because you had to, get the robot going and get it on a ferry and get a hotel, and I couldn't afford to do it for a while. So after the series stopped, maybe 2001, 2, 3, I did a few of those, and then King B was put under the bench in my garage, and it just had basic water pouring into it from 2003 to 2015.
That sounds so sad.
I know, and honestly, it was like, well, that's never going to happen again. I hoped it would carry on, but I had in my mind that I've done that, and I'd done as much as I can, and I'd have to start with a new robot if I was coming back anyway, because I'd realised by then that King Bee was really, the hope of it winning was really sort of tailing out. I mean, I think I realised that when I think I lost it. Was it Dominator? Oh, I think that was series 4, and it was like, oh, these have got good now. These robots, they're really, really good. And I knew then there was that realization. So it was good to do a few little fun things, but I never thought King Bee would ever come back
as like a force to be.
as a force.
Yeah.
Exactly, I knew it, and I still knew it when I did come back. But I kept that machine, and I didn't look at it for all those years. I mean, I felt guilty when I did get it out again. Actually,
Really?
yeah.
Well, anyway, Series 8. Obviously, what was kind of your reaction when you thought, "Oh, do you know what? Let's do it again. Let's do one more series, or try and do another series." What was the thought process behind that?
Oh, I tell you what, that was interesting. The sad thing is that I'd actually started building a new King Bee before I knew Robot Wars was coming back, because I hoped it was going to come back.
Mm.
And I'd done, for some reason, I just went in the garage and saw this rusty heap, and I thought I must get that out. And I took it to I took it to Ireland just the one time, and it ran absolutely flawlessly, and I had such a good time. And that was how many years? More than 10 years I hadn't run, and I went over there, and I thought, now this is something. Why haven't I not been out to, more live events and done stuff? And I saw, having had so much time off, I was more clearly able to see the faults in King Bee. And I thought, well, no, I want to build King Bee because I'm only going to do live stuff. I never imagined it would really come back, but I must build it to the same outline and design so that I can take it to live events and it could be reliable. Because I thought, well, this crusty old chassis that's just been hanging around for so many years, it's not going to stand up to much. So I had in my mind, and then I started building it. And like the very evening I started building it, I got a call up out of the blue. It's like, oh, hello, Simon Harrison. Yes. Oh, Robot Wars is coming back. Have you got a robot? It's like, well, if you give me another 4 months, I could have had something really nice, But it's like, of course, I said, yeah, I'll do that. I grabbed it. Suddenly, I was a light, But all I had was parts of King Bee 3 and Powerworks King Bee in a rusty state. Okay, come back from Ireland, but I pretty much annihilated what I had left, just going hell for leather in Ireland. Because I thought, well, I'm not going to use this again. I'll just,
and then suddenly, what am I going to do now?
Had these pieces, and you know what they're like. I mean, you don't know what they're like, but it's like, oh, we're filming in 4 or 5 weeks. Like 4 or 5 weeks, So when it came back, of course, I said yes. I like the smile came back on my face, like a smile I'd missed, a smile I hadn't had in so many years. But it's just, damn, why couldn't they have just give me another year? And then I'll go on a bit more about why I didn't have a new robot for a long time after that. But yeah, so I came back to Series 8, which was pieces. I had to use pieces out of King Bee 3, which are a bit too mashed, that got too rusty in the Powerworks machine, and rejig the chassis a bit. And I gave up on the saw because I decided strength was key, and reinforced everything, expecting it to be grisly, which it was, and put that in, which was.
I mean, as I think you did get a kill, which is something. You got to kill Overdozer, which is great fun. I mean, obviously you've already said you didn't really rate your chances of going far in the series, but did you enjoy doing Series 8 as a whole?
No.
No.
I was really depressed afterwards. Actually, I had a couple of months where I was really down, and I'll tell you the reason why is because we could have done better, but I put it in the rush. I put it together wrong, and the performance was poor enough, but it could have been better in that they come and film in your garage and do all the stuff. Well, I rushed around and I thought, right, I'll have it running for them, and the way King Bee, there's chain wheels on each wheel, and they're basically a chain runs around, and it has to be really centered. There's no center, the chain wheel doesn't go through a center, so you have to actually put the wheel on a lathe and like turn it round by hand and mark up the center and then bolt the chain ring on. It's hard to explain, but unless you do it accurately, you get a lot of run out on the chain. And I did it in a hurry, and I had the lathe set up. I'm sorry to get a bit technical about it, but this is really important why it was such a failure. And I had the lathe set up to like turn a taper, and what it meant was that all the chain rings on the wheels are a little bit offset. Not by much you'd notice, but it meant that we worked out the maths when we saw it. When we arrived and worked out, and the chains basically broke on our second outing, we thought, oh crumbs, it's out. And we had no way of centering it. And basically every 11 turns, there was a great big loop of chain appeared, and then it snapped because you had such a takeoff on the thing. It just snapped the chain. So they edited it really nicely, but our link did fall out on our fight with
Big Nipper, I think it was, wasn't it?
Big Dipper, yeah. But what happened every time we went and really put a lot of went all guns blazing, we'd snapped a chain, and then we were well open to, and it was so disappointing because we'd been over to Ireland and we knew that I was really wanting to fight flippers because they. I looked at the walls on the arena. I thought, great, the walls have gone up quite high.
So
As
we get
long
flipped out.
as I can just worry them, and I'd done this because we'd been to the Mechatrons event over in Ireland and proved that in like a sort of a cage where you can't go out, we could be flipped and flipped and flipped and just carry on and just they'd run out of gas and smash them, when they had the flipper open, get in there, and I had this glorious feeling we were in exactly the perfect round. When we looked at the competition, we thought we can actually get this. We could win a couple of fights in this round. We didn't think we'd get through, and get never be a finalist, but we expected we could at least look decent against Dan Tonkier, and we didn't because it went out in 20 seconds, which they managed to extend in the editing a bit, and they're very kind, made it look great, but we were sitting ducks and then flipped right out, and it was my own fault. I put the thing together wrong, and there's nowhere, it was like in the early series when we turned up and saw the motors burning out. We knew the inevitability of the motors catching fire in series 2. We were just waiting for it to happen, and as soon as we saw this run out on the chain and no way of centering it, we tried making up a bit of a mandrel, and the filming was going too fast, and we had no time to center it all up, and we just hoped it would stay on, because it didn't, because you're thrown all over, and
yeah.
I look back and go, just killing myself over.
I will say there was a great bit of TV where I think you were just I think it was after the it was before you were going to fight TR2, I think it was, and they you're just looking at the machine as willing it on. It was I thought that was great to watch. It's just obviously for you it's just emotional torture.
Look, I love that machine. I look at that machine very fondly now, and I can't. I only coming back do I realise how much that machine and I mean to each other. And interestingly as well, Natsuko, because Natsuko picked this up, and she, it's true, she come over to Ireland and got into it, and we talked to the King Bee afterwards and before the fights, and it's almost like a pep talk. And when he was running well after a bit of a pep talk, it was good, but turning up at Series 8, first off, we saw what we're up against, that things had come up along so far, and I knew it, but it was twice as bad as I'd imagined. And also after the going against Overdose, we felt yes, okay. We were kind of a little bit reserved in that fight. We were going careful, but we went in, against Dan Tonkier, and then the chain snapped, and we realised our predicament and the peril that every time we turn a wheel, it's going to break or fall off. So when you go into a fight being nervous about what might happen because you almost could see it happening, it's almost like seeing a bump in the road when you're cycling. You hit it, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's how it was the whole way through. And looking at the machine, and you're right, when that came over in the film, I was looking at it going, yeah, I love this machine, but I've really let you down. I felt personally that I'd let King Buxton down, in that I had not prepared, or I'd rushed or been rushed and not prepared or tested properly, and we could have at least run around a bit more. Not saying it had got a lot better, because damn fine machines, TR2, Dan Tonkier, and damn fine flippers. We wouldn't have lasted to win.
But you felt like you could have done more than what you did.
We would have want to put on a bit more show, because I believe Robot Wars isn't always about winning. It's about taking part and doing the best you can, and putting up the best resistance. I like a long fight. I don't mind losing, but I wanted the fight to go the whole. It's 3 minutes though nowadays. But I thought don't care, but I'm gonna stay in for 3 minutes, and we're gonna show them, and not catch fire. And something else happened as bad as that.
I mean, it didn't catch fire. This is a first. This is for many years. Obviously, we talked about Series 8 quite a bit. I mean, what does the future hold now? I mean, where does King B come back, or does it? This is the swan song, and it just have a little play on the live events every so often.
I've gone back. What I'm doing, I'm going back to the design when I was in Ireland before it all started, Series 8 happened, and I didn't know television was coming back. Had a notebook, and as I say, I had a blank notebook because I've been away so long, and I was able to see the glaring faults in King B. And keeping the same outline design, I started making notes and designs, and that's what I started making. And I believe I owe it to King B to finish that design. So it will be the best King B that can be made in a garage without any CAD, just with the hacksaw, just with basic stuff, but decent electronics. I've spent a lot of time on it, and actually, it's well behind because I've changed the motors that go in it twice. Because the actual power King B is something that needs to be at least up there. And that's one thing I can do if we could get some power out of the thing. And at the moment, I'm really I've gone to brushless motors, which I've laughed at everyone about. Don't use brushless motors, and I've ended up with brushless motors, and they're so badly made. I've basically had to make my own motors twice.
Oh wow!
The electronics is going well, but the motors is going badly. So, to cut a long story short, I don't want to rush and make the mistake of bringing a weak, underperforming, unreliable King B back to.
It has to be the ultimate King B.
It has to be. I can't move on until I've made the King B that would have definitely won on Series 2. And the one I've rewound a long way. The King B that I'm building is King Buxton Generation 2. It is that first machine. It's the same dimensions. It works the same way, only differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's the ultimate version of what was.
It is.
Okay.
And that's what I've set out to do. And I think, right, I'm going to finish that. And it also helps me because I haven't been building for a long time. I've realised that I'm not very good at building anymore. In that, things have moved on, and I've not really been making bots. And I was quite a dab hand with a MIG welder, and I could get on the lathe and do some stuff. And I've not had to do any of that for years. So actually, this is a relearning of how to actually make robots. And I'm so fired up with ideas. So I was trying to get together with Mike Franklin because I had got these ideas that I'm not able to produce with my own hands. In that, the mistake also used to make with King Bee is I like to do the thing myself. In the later days, the team, of course, are very important when I go filming, but most of the build was myself. I just locked myself away in the garage and made stuff, but I was limited with what I could get done. And I did think I needed a team around me of builders. I mean, the team I have are the team of people. I'm not really a forward person, not confident. And when I go out and do the filming, they're the people who help me get through. They're the best friends I have. Natsko, Martin, and Grant at the moment. And they again talk tactics. They look at other machines. They pep me up. And I couldn't have it any other way. But when I'm on the build, I really need someone else, I think, maybe to build the ultimate machine. And I've looked at other things, but I think I'm going to have to build it all myself. So I'm taking the time, learning a bit of CAD as well, and building this sort of ultimate King Bee before I move on. Now, it could be that the whole series runs out, but I'd rather build the best machine I'm capable of than rush in with something poor.
Something half done, and then it just you kind of get the same sinking feeling again.
Exactly. I've had enough of the sinking feelings, and I think no one wants to see. I might come back if they say, look, we just want to do something fun. If the telly said, oh, we're not doing anything serious. If you want to come back and do a bit of the pinball again, or they had some ridiculous thing on, I'd definitely do it. Of course, I'd take that 2 hands. But I think as a fighting force, I'm under no illusion. Don't people think, oh, he keeps coming back with the same stuff. Well, that's because it was almost like it was King being. It was like just for entertainment value. And after a while, I knew it was never going to be a winning machine. I just wanted to come back and do
put a show.
And Dave Laurie came back, and it was the nicest thing and said some things when after the series, and I was a bit down, and he said, oh, it was like putting a Christmas jumper on. It might you don't get it out except at Christmas, but it sort of, it couldn't be Christmas without it. He said that about King B. It couldn't be Robot Wars in his mind without King B. It was
absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And that was the kind. You were there. You were on the same interview, doing the same. You said it between you, didn't you?
We did.
Him or yourself. But I was so soothed, and it was, it felt like there is a place for King B. But there isn't a place for King B on the winners' rostrum.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So, with that, I think that pretty much sums up the history of King B. But before I let you go, for someone starting out, from scratch, what would your advice be to them? Like, as someone, not building anything for the first time, what would your advice be to them?
Building something for the first time, right? I've always said, use the strengths that you have in your own ability, and so don't try and look at what someone else has done, because very often they've used the strengths of their ability. You might go and look at something that's beautifully machined and beautifully made, and but if you're not able to produce something of that quality, then look for something else that is a strength that you can use. If you just dig deep and think, well, what is it that I can do, or what can I bring to this that actually makes it either unique or will make it stand out or actually gives it a good chance. And if you think deep and hard enough, I think there's always something. And even if you think you haven't got something, do you know people that can help you with your ideas? If you've got a great idea, have a chat and see if someone, because you never know. It's like, I didn't know, when I got together with Grant and he said go and do it, that he was so keen on it. Now, if I hadn't gone to Grant and he talked me into it, it wouldn't have happened. So it's very good also to talk to some people, and also spread your ideas and the things you're thinking, and let that sort of guide you in a way. Use the sort of I'm not saying the false. I mean, that's a bit stuff. But I mean, you will have something inside, that will tell you it's right or wrong. And if you feel it looks a bit wrong, don't go with it. And just think again. Think deeply about what you want to do and what you want to achieve. Don't go and think you can win unless you've got you've got a killer idea and some a little bit of help that can get you through. And don't be depressed if you can't win, because if you had an idea that looks interesting and looks a bit unique and brings something new to the table. I like watching Robot Wars, not always for the winners, because it's easy to get smug about winning. But sometimes I look at something and think, what a brilliant idea. And I'll rewind it and watch that again. Now, if you want to be the person on Robot Wars that gets me rewinding you and watching you again, that's, in my book, that's a good thing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch it. Don't think for a minute the audience just want winners. I think to have great winners, you have to have the great losers. I've always said this. You need to have both sides. If all robots are winners, and fantastic, this was the point. You need the characters, and also through the years you'll look back at, and even when you mocked a machine, sometimes, I know we all have, but it's in such good jest that if you're remembered in that way, that's also a good thing. You can look back and go, I actually brought something to this. I put a bit of history in. So that's what I say.
Brilliant. Anyway, Simon, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being on. Thank you for having me on again. Thank you.
And we'll see. I'll see you next time for whoever's next. See you later.
Great. All right. Thanks, Sam.